Yep. Good morning. Thanks for everybody for being here. Obviously excited about bringing Terrence Davis and Bruce Stevens with me today, and practice is going good. A couple guys dinged up, but looking forward to getting it started here in a couple weeks.
Coach, I know you had a great run in Middle Tennessee, but I guess I'll phrase it because I'm from Huntsville in North Alabama. Who's going to be the Giddy Potts of all this?
You know, Giddy Potts is an unbelievable story there. You know, obviously, now he's in South Korea playing with Murphy Holloway, an ex-Ole Miss great. And, it'll take a little bit. Terrence Davis has been a real fun guy to coach. He's embraced coaching. He's been really good. Devontae Shuler's another guy that is a toughness and has a good persona on the floor. But Giddy's one of those guys that you can coach it for a long time, and just his character and toughness and the way he can shoot it, he was a fun guy to coach.
Kermit, you talked about Blake Hinson this summer being one of the most mature freshman coach. How have you kind of seen him grow throughout the offseason thus far?
Yeah, Blake, he really fits the mode of how we played at Middle Tennessee. He's about 6'7", 230 pounds, very versatile. I don't think there's any doubt he'll be an all-SEC player before he leaves Ole Miss. He can make a three, he can drive it, but he's got great toughness, and he reclassified from 19 to 18. So he comes in with a lot of maturity, and if we started today, obviously he'd start at the 4 for us.
Jerry in the center.
Coach, I thought I read that you were a head coach at age 30, and I'm wondering what you would say to that guy now that you're not there.
It is. I was the head coach at Idaho. I was head coach at a junior college at 24 years old. I was kind of the youngest junior college coach in the country. And then when I was named, Tim Floyd took the New Orleans job, and I took his place at Idaho at 30. I just think that not to be sped up, is the biggest thing that I would tell myself every day as you take the Ole Miss job. It's just, you just got to kind of live in the moment. You start trying to think about what may happen in 4, 5, 6 months. So it's just a day-to-day process. And, so it's things that experience matters, no question. Whether you're a head coach in the SEC or a player trying to find his way in the SEC, experience matters, Jerry. And so I think the biggest thing is just got to slow the process down, take it day to day, and really build it that way. And if we do that, then we're going to win games.
And just as a follow, how does the experience and the difference it makes show itself?
Well, I think this is that obviously the patience with a team that you're trying to build. I think that experience of putting together a staff to start it, the experience of walking in the locker room the very first time when you've got an unsettled locker room, Jerry, and guys are thinking about leaving. And so all of those things, we've been in those situations before. And those things that, the experience that which you've drawn upon, you can't, there's nothing that you can do daily, that you can draw back. I remember when John Brady took over the LSU job and I was with him, and just the process, you go back there and understand the steps that we had to take to build a program.
David back on the left, Parrish is hiding.
Kermit, I see you have a speaking engagement that is sold out Friday. What is your message right now to fans to inspire confidence in the team that won 12 games?
There's Parrish, you can feel it. There's a great vibe about Ole Miss basketball. It really is. The people, the reception has been unbelievable. I think, ticket sales are up, season ticket sales are up. I just think people are excited about basketball. North Mississippi has an unbelievable basketball fan base. For people who hadn't been in those country towns around there, they love it. And so we have Seth Greenberg coming in for our tip-off celebration Friday, and we've sold it out. Be a great crowd. He's hosting Square Jam that night, kind of on the famous Oxford Square. And so all those things are something we wanted to start. Jimmy Dykes spoke at our very first one at Middle Tennessee and did such a fabulous job. And so those are some of the traditions that we're trying to start just to create a buzz in October and 1st of November.
Okay, in the back middle with the TV cameras.
Good.
How much of the SEC, obviously, over the years has continued to grow and evolve and strengthen? How much of that played a
You know, it was I grew up in it. You know, my dad was a head coach and assistant coach in the SEC. His first year was 1965, so I followed it my whole life. And being at Middle Tennessee for 16 years, obviously I've coached at LSU before that, so I'm right in the footprint. You know, and then we've played a lot of SEC teams, and so I was at Middle Tennessee. And, you know, at Middle Tennessee, we had to be absolutely perfect. We couldn't lose a game. And even when you were absolutely almost perfect and you got upset in the tournament, sometimes you didn't get the at-large bid. So it's such a nice situation, no matter where the Rebels are picked today, you know, is that last year Tennessee and Auburn were picked toward the end. You may not be trying to win the championship your first year, but if you can get a competitive team that can win some games at home and your culture gets right, I mean, you can be 8th, 9th, or maybe even 10th in this league and go to the NCAA tournament. So that's the beauty about me taking the Ole Miss job, on top of, you know, obviously the facilities, the great leadership on our campus, and being at an unbelievable institution. So it's been a lot of fun for the first 7 months. Yep, Ja'Cory's with the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's at a G League team. He turned down some big contracts in Europe. He's just trying to get to the NBA, and I think he's got a great chance. He had a really good year in the G League last year with the Cavaliers. You know, Ja'Cory was a guy that, you know, was MVP of our league. I saw him grow up so much. He really, and he did. He had a great appreciation for his time at Arkansas. I mean, he does, and he still had a Hog sticker on his truck as he drove, you know, in Murfreesboro. But you know, he set out a year. He grew up. He got his degree. MVP of our league. Helped us win 31 games. We beat Minnesota in the first round, and he really is. He's one of the most competitive people and one of the most improved players that I've ever coached.
Third row in the center.
As you're trying to get adjusted to the SEC, just what have you learned about how competitive this league was last year in the championship?
You know, last year when I was at Middle, we played Ole Miss and played Vanderbilt, and was fortunate to win both games. And we'd played, you know, we'd fortunate to beat Auburn a couple of years before, and then, you know, so we've been involved in the SEC. But it's the best the league has ever been in the history of the league, top to bottom, no question. The quality of coaches, it's almost getting to be like football recruiting, where you could look at a team in the SEC in football and he'd finish 10th in the SEC in recruiting, but be in a top 25 class. And so basketball recruiting is almost getting like that. So the coaches here are doing a fabulous job of keep getting very good players. It's funded better than it's ever been funded in the history of the league at every school. Ole Miss, all the chips are in as far as is absolutely a total commitment to basketball in every phase. And so we don't need for anything at Ole Miss. You know, we got to recruit to it and we got to coach to it. And I think that's where the whole league has gotten to that point. Yeah, it was. I mean, obviously I'm from Mississippi, so I love coming back to my home state, and that was a big reason. But, yeah, you want to try to coach against the very best coaches in the country. We've got them here, play against the very best players and the best facilities. And I know we can argue with different leagues, but I don't think there's any question in anybody's mind that the SEC is the best basketball league this season. So, yeah, that's exactly where we all want to be on that stage.
Going back to Parrish real quick.
Kermit, could you explain your philosophy for coaching defense and how these guys have or have not embraced it?
The locker room has really embraced it. You know, I don't think it's fair that you come into a place and you talk about changing culture. That's not fair to anybody. You know, we're all trying to create our own culture. And so defensively, you know, the biggest thing in this league, if you don't get back defensively in this league, you're not going to win a game on the road. So you got to get defensive transition to the forefront. And then you got to have a toughness, you know. But then we've had a lot of success of changing defenses, Parrish, you know, at Middle Tennessee, of playing some 1-3-1 and being a physical man-to-man team, and all of those things are some things that we're trying to instill. But my locker room has been very, very receptive. They're competitive guys. Andy did a good job with them. Terrence Davis had played for AK for 3 years, and so they all have a good base, and we're just trying to build on that.
On the front row, right side.
So John Calipari is now the longest tenured head coach in the SEC. Did he reach out when he took the Ole Miss job? Did you all ever play him when he was at Memphis back before he left for?
We did. We played I still think it's maybe one of the top 2 crowds to ever see a game at Bridgestone Arena. We're at Middle. We played Memphis when they were #1 in the country with Derrick Rose, and I think it was maybe a little under 19,000 people. I think Vanderbilt played Western Kentucky, you know, and so, yeah, we played all of his really, really good teams at Memphis probably years, maybe 10, 12 years ago. So, obviously, Cal has done an unbelievable job. I've always thought he's one of the most underrated just basketball coaches in the country and how he rebuilds his teams all the time. And, yeah, he did a great job at Memphis, and obviously it speaks for itself what they're doing at Kentucky. I can't even remember. I got so many texts, I can't even remember. But obviously, I've seen Cal a bunch in SEC meetings and on the road recruiting.
Second row middle.
Kermit, you mentioned about how you think the SEC is unquestionably the best league. How much should we attribute that to so many guys who tested the waters and came back?
No question about it. I mean, and I think it's probably been said here before, when Kentucky gets older, then obviously that's hard for everybody in college basketball, and they're older than they have been. And so, you know, I just think that a lot of guys, like even Terrence Davis for us, put his name in the draft and had a lot of workouts, chose to come back. And, you know, it happened at different places, at Auburn and different places. So I don't think there's any question when that happens and the league has good young players and then more mature players, all league players coming back, then that's when the league is going to really take off. Thanks, guys. Thank you.